how a recent signing by the San Francisco 49ers will impact when Rams rookie tight end Terrance Ferguson signs. And we got 2 X-Factor Rams that could take this team from great to elite. Also, we continue our countdown of the top 25 most important Rams heading into the 2025 season. And did the Rams get an accurate offseason grade by NFL experts? I don't think so. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also available over on YouTube, trying to get to 18,000 subscribers. Very close. So if you're new to the channel or you just want to join the party, now's the time. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and if you're already a subscriber and you want to support the channel, hit the like button, drop a comment. Podcast listeners, if you write us a review, we will read it live on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report as Cy. I do NFL radio for Westwood One. Today I'm flying solo with the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. We'll be back tomorrow. We've got a jam-packed show. We're talking lots of Rams football. We're talking training camp. Did the Rams get a fair offseason grade by some of the experts? We'll get into that, but also we're talking a couple X factors that could take this team from great to elite. But first, today's episode of Locked On Rams brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Okay, so it is inching closer to training camp, which begins on the 24th at LMU. Players report on the 22nd. So we are getting very, very close. And when that comes around, one of the questions is, when will you ink your first round picks, your second round picks? Well, right now, the Rams are getting closer to a deal with their top selection in the 2025 draft. That is tight end Terrance Ferguson that they selected out of Oregon. They took him with the 46th pick. And now Ferguson is just one of the 29 second-round picks who haven't signed their rookie deals yet. So you look at where Ferguson's at and the kind of contract that he's looking for, and you start to look at the comps. And up until a few days ago, there's only a couple second-round picks from the 2025 draft that had signed their rookie deals. Both of them got fully guaranteed contracts. That is the exact reason why there wasn't any other players from the second round to not sign, and that was including Terrance Ferguson. Well, then we got the Cleveland Browns with Carson Schlesinger, the Houston Texans with Jaden Higgins. That made every second rounder hold out a little bit for a guaranteed deal too, because on Wednesday night, Alfred Collins, the 43rd overall pick from the San Francisco 49ers, he signed a deal, and it was not fully guaranteed. So Collins got 88% of his contract fully guaranteed. That's up from 78% that the 43rd overall pick got last year. And now that Collins has signed that deal that isn't fully guaranteed, well, now the rest of the second rounders that don't have that, they'll ultimately probably do the same thing. The agents of the other players did not want to go out there and say, oh, Schlesinger and Higgins, they got fully guaranteed deals, but hey, my guy doesn't get one, right? So now that we have guys in the second round not getting fully guaranteed deals, Higgins got one with the Texans, Schlesinger, former Bruin, got one with the Cleveland Browns. You feel good for them, but that doesn't mean that that's going to be the case for everyone. Adam Schefter tweet out, the next big domino in the second round has fallen. 49ers second round pick Alfred Collins, the number 43rd overall selection, reached an agreement tonight on a 4-year, $10.3 million deal that includes over $9 million guaranteed and is now expected to trigger multiple second round picks to start signing. He said until now, 30 of the 32 second-round picks remained without a deal. Collins will have 88% of his deal guaranteed, a huge jump over last year's number 43rd pick, so the 43rd pick from last year. Now, as far as Ferguson goes, he was drafted by the Rams 3 spots after Collins was taken by the Niners. So when you look at the kind of guarantees he's after, he might not get to 88%, but he'll probably get something that could be more than the same slot last year. So there hasn't been any chatter about if Ferguson would hold out heading into training camp. You got the Chargers rookie Trey Harris. He did not report to LA's camp, and that definitely kind of made you wonder, wait a minute, will there be any other second rounders that won't be reporting? Will they take that same attack plan towards trying to get the deal they want? Rams players, though, they're going to be reporting on July 22nd, so we'll find out exactly if, one, they got a deal done by then, or two, if he is going to report or not. I think that he's going to sign his contract beforehand, before camp begins, and he will start, and this will be a footnote in the course of the season. But I still think it's worth discussing just because you want him, for his sake, to get that deal done. You don't want any distractions heading into camp. And I think that the Rams are always fair with guys. And I think that's what we're going to see in this situation. Is this going to be a fair deal? And that brings me to my next topic today, and that is Terrance Ferguson, and if he can take the Rams over the top. Because CBS, they put out their top 50 under-the-radar players that could have big impacts on the 2025 season, and it included 2 Rams. And before we get to the highest-rated player on this list, we'll talk about Terrance Ferguson. Terrance Ferguson came in at 15 out of 50, and ahead of him was Tutu Atwell that came in at number 8. It reads, the Rams put at least 3 wide receivers on the field at the second highest rate in the NFL last year, and after adding Davante Adams to pair with Puka Nacua this offseason, Los Angeles has a really strong top 2, but number 3, that role falls to Atwell, the diminutive 2021 second rounder who has increased his receptions, receiving yards, and catch rate every season. In his 4 highest snap share games, he averaged 5 catches and 71 receiving yards. He has speed no other player on the Los Angeles Rams offense has. About Ferguson, it says, Ferguson ran a 4.63 second 40-yard dash to the combine, fastest of all tight ends. That vaulted him into the top of the draft boards, and the Rams made him their top selection of the draft in the second round. The Rams really haven't had any sort of explosive element at tight end under Sean McVay, who will be plenty excited to put Ferguson in the spot to take advantage at that position. So it's saying that, hey, with Terrance Ferguson, he has a new weapon to go. That you can put him into advantageous positions, to move the chains, to be a flex tight end, to work up and down those seams. And this is a rookie, right? We don't know what he looks like at this level, but just look at what Puka Nacua did for this team a few years ago. A team that looked like they're rebuilding. There was talk about tanking for Caleb Williams, and then that team, they went on to make the playoffs in an improbable way. Well, we've seen what Terrance Ferguson did in college. If he can do 80% of what he did for the Ducks in college in his first year with the Rams, that could take this offense from being a great offense to one of the top 3 offenses in the sport. Because I think we know what we're going to get from Puka Nacua, 1,000-plus yard season. If he's healthy, 1,500 yard season. Davante Adams, same thing, 1,000-plus yard season, 5 to 10-plus TD, something in that range. Kyrie Williams, one of the most productive backs. They've committed to the run game. You got a offensive line that has been rebuilt and using a different scheme, right? Gap duo, more physical, road grader style. So we know what we're going to get from Kyrie Williams for the most part. We don't know what we're going to get from Tyler Higbee because he's in the later stage of his career, coming back from a major injury. He did come back late last season, but we don't know what he's going to look like. And then Terrance Ferguson, could he finally be that game-changing tight end that Sean McVay's been after for so many years? If he is, this offense has a higher ceiling. And with these two picks here, I think they make the most sense because I think for Ferguson, he gets to learn under Tyler Higbee and you get yourself acclimated, you transition, you understand the offense. And then if he builds an early rapport with Matthew Stafford, we see some early success for him. I think that you could see, I don't want to put the Puka Nacua type of pressure on him, but at the tight end spot, I think he can be a productive tight end that really opens Sean McVay's eyes and allows the evolution of what Sean McVay's offense can be. We've seen so much 11 personnel, but 12 personnel is something that I think could be the next chapter. I think it will be. I mean, from what I've heard is that they're very excited about implementing a tight end, and they think Ferguson can be that game changer. And this is the thing. A lot of positions in the NFL, it'll take you multiple years to get impacts from that player, right? I mean, edge rushers, we got a great first year out of Jared Verse, but typically that's not a position where rookies come in and they're the best of their position or among the best of their position, right? Tight end, though, we've seen in recent years with Brock Bowers, right? With Sam Laporta, with Dalton Kincaid, young tight ends can have impacts on this league in year one. And I think that Terrance Ferguson has the talent to do just that. And the best thing that he has going for him is that he's going to be a priority if they think that he can handle it. If they think that he has that talent to be able to do that at this level. And by all accounts, the Rams believe that he does. The Rams, and look, a lot of teams say, oh, we can't believe that he fell to us, or we can't believe we were able to get him with that pick. Well, it has been reported by multiple insiders that the Rams were even considering Terrance Ferguson at 26 before they trade out of the first round. So they gave him a first-round grade at that position, and I think it's because of his athleticism and his upside. So really excited about the potential of Terrance Ferguson. We'll talk some more to Atwell. And also, did the Rams get a fair offseason grade? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. Today's episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app just keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. And right now, you got the second half of the baseball season starting. The Los Angeles Dodgers on pace to win 97 games, taking on the Brewers tomorrow. Can get in on some Dodger baseball. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also want to send a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode, Monday through Friday, wherever you get your podcasts. Now's the time to join the Everyday Listeners Club, by the way. If you're not a part of the Everyday Listeners Club, now's the time to join. Training camp starting, get locked in to your team, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. But here in our second segment, we're going to kind of tie a bow in the offseason because training camp is fast approaching. And now we can really look in its totality what the Rams did. Well, you've seen various grades out there, and today I'm going to talk about the one from Yahoo. Yahoo gave the Rams a B- for their offseason grade. It says about what the Rams did this offseason, quote, this time the Rams made a smart move to trade their first-round pick and a third-rounder to the Falcons for a second and a seventh-round pick this year and a 2026 first-round pick. That's a good investment. The Rams draft class itself ended up okay anyway. Tight end Terrance Ferguson, second round, could have an impact right away. Defensive end Josiah Stewart, third round, is another promising young piece on defense. Fourth round pick Jarquez Hunter is a name to watch at running back, and linebacker Chris Paul Jr. provided good value as a fifth round selection, B-. So it talks about their draft picks, doesn't talk too much about some of the other moves that they did make. It spent a lot of time talking about those draft picks, and I think that only time will tell if the Rams crush it again in the draft. And recent history tells us that they've really had that Midas touch for the last couple of seasons, picking guys like Puka, Kobe Turner, Byron Young, Jared Verse, Braden Fisk. List goes on and on. Really, they've had a lot of wins in the draft for the last couple of years, even on special teams where they've been able to accomplish as well. But I look at a combination of the free agents, the moves they made, the moves they didn't make, and the drafts. And I look at, first and foremost, what's not discussed here. And I'm looking at the Matthew Stafford angle to it. And it does say that there are still questions about the run defense and the cornerback position, but it's reasonable to believe a very young defense improves after last year's strong finish. If LA's defense grows and Matthew Stafford remains at his level, the Rams could win the NFC West again. And as we saw last postseason, they could be a very tough out. So I would give the Rams offseason an A. And the reason I would is because it just kind of glossed over the fact that Matthew Stafford could have been gone. Let's be honest about this. The way that his contract was structured, if another team was going to pay him, which there were multiple teams, the Raiders, the Giants, there were teams that were willing to match what the Rams were able to give and even exceed that to get him. And he would have been gone. If Matthew Stafford wanted to make more money, he could have easily been off this Rams team. That's how his contract was structured. And the Rams would have moved on, right? But they renewed their vows this offseason. And I think you have to treat the Rams offseason as, hey, we got a quarterback that is still one of the best in the game. We got a quarterback that's still ready to compete at the highest level and compete for a Super Bowl, right? And you look at where Matthew Stafford's at this stage of his career, and it almost feels like, are they taking him just a little bit for granted? The fact that the Rams were able to pull that off and keep happy for this long, even though there were some years where it looked like maybe he was injured and maybe that he would retire early. Well, guess what? I mean, there is a lot of talk about how he's doing this year versus last year, the year before that, and there's been no decline from him. I mean, he can still throw it. He can still sling the rock. Sean McVay and Les Snead are kind of thinking about the future and the present, but extending his deal, it was 100% the right thing to do, and to not have a quarterback controversy or wondering who's going to be your signal caller heading into the season, it means the Rams still have a chance. Now, you look at where Stafford was last year, he had a 64.7 QBR. That was 17th. That was that's for guys entering his 17th season, okay? And that was his highest QBR since 2019 when he was still in the Detroit Lions. 2 years ago in 2023, where he got an 8th place finish for the MVP voting, he wasn't that high. So you look at his 64.7 QBR in 2024, that's still extremely impressive. So the Rams were able to retain that. I think that is the biggest reason why you got to give him a good offseason score. And then you look at the fact you bring in a Devontae Adams, which came as a surprise to most. And then you make the decision to release Cooper Kupp, and you release him, and then you get Devontae Adams. Look, this is a Rams team that could have easily said, you know what, Cooper Kupp is Matthew Stafford's guy. And Matthew Stafford could have easily said, look, I'll stay here, but I want to make sure that my guy Cooper Kupp is here with me. And then the Rams would have been in a difficult situation, and they could have appeased that. But if we're just trying to keep the microscope on how do you compete for a Super Bowl, right? How do you build a Super Bowl champion, right? If we're looking at it through that prism, well, if through that lens, it tells you that Davante Adams in the big 2025 is a better receiver that can help Matthew Stafford win a Super Bowl than Cooper Kupp is at this stage of his career. So not only did you move off of Cooper Kupp, which they were going to do anyway, right? You could have been in a situation where Tutu Atwell is your number 2 wide receiver. So not only did you move off of Cooper Kupp, which I think is going to prove to be the right decision, but you replaced his role in this offense as far as how he's being prioritized with someone that I think has more left in the tank at this stage of his career in Davante Adams. And that is no disrespect to Cooper Kupp. I am a big Cooper Kupp fan. I always will be, but I'm trying to squeeze as many Super Bowl runs as I can out of what's left of Matthew Stafford's career. And I think they moved off at the right time. And then there's kind of the sneaky moves, right? Poona Ford, just improving their ability to stop the run. That was something that hurt them last season. Just look at the loss to the Eagles. Just that push up front and having a guy that can excel in that area, I think is going to be one of the sneaky offseason moves that will take this team to another level. So I look at the Tutu Atwell move. $10 million seems like a lot to many, but I also think that they're going to have a different scheme for him this year. And you just can't teach that kind of speed, right? So that made sense too. So I look at overall what this Rams team did. And yes, in a classic offseason, if you still had Matthew Stafford, where there was no doubt that he was going to be back, then I say, okay, sure. Yeah, Poona Ford and Davante Adams, not like he's in his prime, and you made some other moves kind of are on the margins and stuff, then fine. But I think that you have to treat getting Matthew Stafford back almost as if he was some type of free agent pickup. And I do think that you're going to look back and see some of those later picks. I expect Chris Paul out of Ole Miss to have an impact. I do think that Jarquez Hunter is going to bring a different level of explosiveness to this Rams backfield that we haven't seen in a long time. So I think that at least half of these draft picks are going to turn out to be pieces for this team in some capacity, whether it be a role player to a star or somewhere in between. But I like these guys as day one contributors, and I do think the Rams did not. I mean, you look at some of the other moves too. I mean, Alec Jackson. It's tough to say. Is he going to stay healthy? You gave him a new deal, right? And you don't. If the Rams knew that there was a risk of blood clots, I think they felt they could manage it. So it's not like they felt like, oh, we got a lemon or anything like that. I mean, he's turned himself into an average to an above average left tackle. So that's a good move. I mean, Landman, he should be a 2-down inside linebacker. You brought back Coleman Shelton, to solidify the middle of that offensive line. We saw what happened in the loss with Bo Limmer. And what happened there? You just can't get blown by in a big situation and force an incompletion. So you solidify that with Shelton. I think you just look at, you bring back Akella Witherspoon. You keep Cameron Curl. I mean, are those lateral moves? We'll see how that works. I think it's tough to call a lateral move with the Rams organization because they value and covet guys that know their culture and know their scheme. So I do think this is an A. I really do. I look at this as an A off season, and the only reason why you could probably talk me into maybe an A- or even a B+ is we'll see what happens at the cornerback spot. But I think that this is a Rams team that at the cornerback spot, you're going to find a way to get at least a little more than you did last year, right? You're going to get Kobe Durant having a better year, Darius Williams having a better year, Akella Witherspoon playing like he did towards the end of the season. I don't think that we're going to look back and say, oh, the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl because of the cornerback room. I just don't believe that. And if they have the first-round picks to make a move, they need to address that position. But I think the Rams got an A this offseason. I know you're going to think that's biased, but the truth of the matter is if they lost Matthew Stafford, they would have gotten a D offseason to an F. Because the truth is, no Stafford, no Super Bowl. They found a way to keep him, and now they're still in the Super Bowl mix. And that's what I thought this was all about. And that's how high stakes it was for me. I just think that people think that it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be back, but that was not the case. But coming up next, we're going to continue our countdown of the most important Rams heading into the 2025 season. Got the top 10. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, we're going to continue our countdown of the top 25 most important Rams heading into the 2025 season. Today we're at number 10, and I've got Kevin Dotson, right guard Kevin Dotson, coming in at number 10. Reason for this is I look at a Rams offensive line that's seeing a decline with Rob Havenstein just because he's getting older. Steve Avila, don't want to hint at the future of this list, but I believe in Kevin Dotson as far as his floor more than Steve Avila right now at this stage of their careers. So I think as far as overall importance, I think that Dotson brings so much stability that you don't have to have him higher on this list because you know what you're going to get out of him at the number 10 spot on this list. And he did have a little bit of a down year in 2024. The pass blocking grade was at 60.2 per PFF, but still, he's been one of the best guards in the National Football League. He had a 78.2 overall grade. That was the 8th best among all guards. So he was a top 10 guard in the sport. And I think to me, it's the fact that he didn't miss a single snap, except in Week 18 when the Rams rested their starters. So he is reliable. This dude is like, man, this dude's like a 94 Honda Civic or Toyota Camry, except he performs like he's a big Hummer out there, right? He performs like a big power SUV that can go out there and do the dirty work and just clear those running lanes for Kyren Williams. And that's extremely valuable to this team. And they made that trade for him hoping that he would be the guy that he is. He's certainly been that. He 100% has been that guy. And I think for a lot of fans out there, you're not going to talk about a guy like Kevin Dotson because he's not flash to his game. He doesn't play a glamorous position, but guys like Kevin Dotson are the difference between being a second-place team and a first-place team, between being a wild card team and a team that makes the NFC Championship game, to being a Super Bowl team. Those types of teams have depth at these positions and have quality at these positions, and he certainly is that. And I think the offensive line, he's the glue to it. I mean, if he goes down, they're definitely a whole level below. So you look at the role he's going to have. I mean, he's the guard that's going to be right between Coleman Shelton at center, Rob Havenstein at right tackle. So he'd be right between those guys. And he's been that for the last couple of seasons. Since he supplanted Joe Noteboom in Week 4 of the 2023 season, he's kept that job. That has been his job. K-Dot has been that guy. And he was so good his first year. The Rams said, you know what? We thought this was going to be a trade that could fill some gaps and be a bridge, but they liked him so much, they gave him a $48 million extension. He's going to be here through the 2026 season. And I think that unless he falls off or has an injury, he's going to play out that contract as the starting right guard. And he is only 29. He's only going to be 29, so he could even be here longer than that. So I think Kevin Dotson is tremendously valuable to this team. I think he's top 10 as far as how important he is. Last year, he allowed 30 pressures, 5 sacks, a 60.2 pass blocking grade, 82.3 run blocking grade. So I look at the run blocking to continue, and the one area I want to see him improve in next year is the pass blocking. Just footwork, getting to your spots, making sure that you're making those reads correctly, and I think that can go up. So love me some K-Dot, but he comes in at number 10. Also, he's just a bad dude. Follow him on Instagram. Puts on the shades. You don't mess with K-Dot, man. Kevin Dotson is the man. But that is going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.